In this presentation, we will enter payroll, processing payroll checks for the second month of operations within QuickBooks Pro 2019. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in the home page. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows going to the view tab or the view drop down and selecting the open windows list. What we're going to do now is pay the employees for the second month of operations. We're going to be down here in the home tab in the employees section. Remember that we should see three icons typically if we have paid for some kind of payroll or if we have set up the manual payroll as we have done here. We've taken a look at these options in a prior presentation. You can look at the paid options within QuickBooks using the turn on payroll here, and you have other options for payroll as well, including third-party payroll that could process the payroll outside of QuickBooks and possibly link it in or enter it into the system as a journal entry. So we do recommend talking to a tax professional, a payroll professional, and or CPA when considering your payroll options. Within QuickBooks, if you don't see these three icons, then something isn't set up typically within payroll. We haven't purchased one of the payrolls or we haven't set up the manual setup. If you want to just practice the payroll, then you could set up the manual payroll setup. You can do that, or we have done that in a prior presentation. We've also run payroll for the first month of operations, and now we're on the second month of operations, and we're going to run payroll for the second time. So we've run payroll for the first month, we paid the payroll liabilities for the first month, now we're running payroll for the second month. In order to do that, we're going to select the pay employees, and then we're going to enter this information through this process. Now, these two dates are going to be very important. We got the pay period end, which should start to automatically populate based on the information we entered into the system, meaning are we paying people weekly? Do we pay people bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or in our case, monthly? So it shows this date after the first date, the first pay period we had, because this is the next month, a month later, and we pay people monthly. So this will not always be the same as the check date. So the check date, it's very possible, will be some date after the date that we process the payroll period end, because we need a little time to process the actual checks. For our example, it will be the same. 02/28/19 is the date that we process the check. It's going to come out of the checking account, so that is correct. We can either print checks on a paycheck stub, on check stock, or handwrite and assign check numbers. If we have the checks, if we're printing checks and we got checks from the bank that we're going to use through the QuickBooks system and print them off in a printer, then we could put those checks in the printer and print them. For the example problem, we're going to use the hand write the check, which we could write by hand with our, and then actually have the same check number here. Just check that the check numbers are the same. Although, if we do that system, we need to make sure that we are still providing our employees with the information about the withholdings, and we'll see how to do that as well. The first check number will be here. It's been generated by QuickBooks. It should be correct because it's going to be just in numerical order. So it's picking the next check number. We want to make sure that that lines up with our actual checkbook. Then we've got the two employees. We've got Adam Hamilton and we've got the Erica. Now, it's because we have the manual system, we're going to have to go in here and make some adjustments in terms of the withholdings for each of these employees. So we're actually going to go in here and adjust not only the hours that were worked, if it was an hourly employee, but actually manually input the withholdings for federal income tax, Social Security, and Medicare. And those withholdings are what QuickBooks would do, or in part what QuickBooks would do if we had a paid payroll. But it's really good practice to enter this information in because it makes us think about what withholdings are and how the system is working. So we'll first choose Adam here. We're just going to click on Adam Hamilton. That's going to be our first item. You can only view checks of those employees who have been checked. Okay, I'm going to say okay, and then we need to check that first. And then we're going to view Adam's information here. So Adam's a salary employee. It's got $4,583 as the rate. That's taking the yearly rate and divided by, in our case, the number of periods, which in our case is months. So 12 months this would be how much is gross pay for Adam. We don't need any hours necessarily if we're salary based in order to calculate the payroll at least. And then we've got the salary here. That's going to be the same. This is going to calculate the net check. And to do so, we're going to have to say what we're going to take out of the payroll check for Adam. So we're going to take out of the payroll check the federal withholdings. And I'm just going to give the number here, which is negative 720. Where would we find that? We'd have to get the W-4 and find the number of allowances. We'd have to have our monthly pay period and then look at the tables and the circular E we can get from the IRS in order to figure out what the actual withholding would be. It's a tedious process because the federal income taxes are not a flat tax but use a progressive tax system. So just being able to get that number calculated for us by the computer is pretty nice to have in something that's basically worth paying for if we have a number of employees in order to do that, so we don't pick up the wrong number. If we do pick up the wrong number here, then what will happen is we will over or under withhold, which could cause, when the 1040 is filled out by Adam at the end of the year, when he makes his 1040, his taxes at the end of the year, then it could result in under or over withholding and either paying taxes or having a larger refund due to that difference. So in other words, this does kind of wash out at the end of the year if we're off in some way, but because it'll result in it clearing out at the end of the year when he makes his 1040 return. But of course, we don't want to be responsible, especially for penalties and interest, if he underreports his taxes. That could be a result. So it's best to just have that given to us, and if we have a computer system to do so, that's nice. Now that the Social Security is a lot easier typically, we're just going to give the number for the example, which is 284.16. It's more of a flat tax, so it's not that difficult to calculate. So it would be the 4583.33 times 0.062, 6.2%. Currently, I believe, is the rate. So, and this is just an example problem, so we're just, it'd be close here. So that one in practice would be fairly easy to pick up. And then the Medicare is the same as well. It's a flat tax, although again, there's exceptions. There's a cap to it that could cause us problems and whatnot. So it is nice to have the computer set it up as it would if we had a paid payroll subscription. So then we'll have the Medicare, and again, that's more of a flat tax. So if we take the gross pay, it'd be something like 4583.33 times 0.0145 or 1.45%. 66.45, so we're using a pretty close number. So those will be easier to calculate, but again, would rather have the computer to do so. Net check then is the 4,583.33 minus the 720 for the federal income tax, the employee's federal income tax, not ours, not the employer, minus the 284.16 for Social Security and Medicare 66.46. So this is the net check. So remember that this is how much is actually owed to Adam. This is how much Adam's going to get. We're not giving Adam the difference. However, it's basically his because he has earned it, and we will pay on his behalf to whoever we have to pay, which in this case is going to be the Fed, the government. Then we're going to have to pay on top of that the kind of matching, which is going to be Social Security, the same amount. 284.16. This is what we pay over and above the 4,583 for the employee, or not for the employee, but in addition to the withholdings that on the employees. And then we've got the 66.46. So that's going to be everything here that we're going to have. And again, we're just doing the federal income tax, keeping this simplistic. If state taxes, if we're in a state that has state taxes, then oftentimes it's going to have a similar kind of format to the Fed. They'll often copy the Fed in terms of the withholding requirements. And if we pay for more expensive software in terms of QuickBooks, then QuickBooks will be able to customize different state requirements as well. So now we're going to save this, save and close, and we're going to go into Erica, our other employee, and do the same thing. Again, I didn't check it off, so check off Erica first, and then we'll go into Erica's information. And so Erica's an hourly employee, so if we have the rate, we're going to have to enter in first. We're going to say 20 and 40 hours is going to be the default here. So the hours could change. We might have something outside that Erica puts in a timesheet and gives us a timesheet. If it's a standard 40 hours each week, then it'll be 40 hours. If it's something other than that and we track it and she tracks her own time and gives us a spreadsheet, we can put that in. If we have some other outside tracking source, we can use that, or we can use QuickBooks tracking timer as well to pick up the number of hours. So that's going to 20 times 40 is going to be the 800. And then we'll take out Erica's withholdings. Once again, federal income tax, negative 110. This number would vary. So in other words, other people that make 800 may not have the same federal income tax. Why? Because they have a different number of exemptions resulting in a different number of allowances they reported on the W-4. They may have a spouse that has income that's going to affect their taxes as well, and therefore increase or decrease the withholdings based on the information in their total picture. So this is going to vary from employee to employee based on the information they give to us on the W-4 and based on our withholding periods, in our case monthly, and we can look that up on tables. So we're going to go to the Social Security, which is going to be 49.60, and that is something that's pretty easy to calculate, or much easier than the federal income tax, which is 800 times 0.062 usually. So that looks like we're about right here in our example problem. And then we're going to take out 1160 for Medicare, which again should be flat tax, which is 800 gross times 0.0145 typically. So it looks like we're about right in our example. So, but again, this is just an example problem. So then we're going to go down here and go to Social Security matches, 49.6. Medicare matches is going to be 11.6. And so that's going to be our information. So Erica earned 800. We took from Erica, and note when we say this, we never actually gave Erica, of course, the 800. The Fed made us keep it. So we said you can imagine, like, we're going to give Erica 800, and then we take back real quick the 110, 49.60, and the 11.60, not in order to keep, but in order to pay the IRS in this case, and Erica gets to keep 628.80 of what she earned, 800, and she shouldn't feel cheated necessarily because this other information is not going to be kept by us, but we're doing the service, supposedly, of paying on her behalf her obligations to the government for taxes. So, and we're paying on top of that the 49.60 and the 11.60 over and above what was earned, the 800 for our payroll taxes. So we're going to say save and close there. And now we'll continue through this. So we're going to process the checks. So we will continue. And we're going to create the paychecks now. So we will create the paychecks. And it's going to then have the paychecks. Now again, we can print the stubs here. Print paychecks, we didn't print them because we're going to write the paychecks in our system. If we had printed them, then we can print them. But we do want the pay stubs. So if you select this item to print the pay stubs, then you can actually see these pay stubs. And I just want to preview up here these pay stubs. And this is important information here. So here we have Adam. We have to provide this information in some format, typically for regulation purposes, because if we just give the net check, then we don't really tell them what we took from them, and we have to because they earned this amount and we took this amount here. So what we need to do is provide them with this information saying, hey, this is how much you earned, this is what we took from your paycheck, that's why your paycheck is only this, and we need to give it on a year-to-date basis. Here's what you have earned thus far, year-to-date. Here's what we have taken from you year-to-date, broken out by category. This has been your net pay year-to-date. So that's going to be necessary information. If we're handwriting the check, then we still need to give them that information. So we'll close this back out, close this back out, and then I would typically check the check register, and then we'll look at the financial statements. So check register, I usually go to the banking drop-down and use register. And then we'll go to the checking account. That's the one we want. So we're going to say OK. And then within here, we've got Adam and Rebecca. 2 paychecks. You can see it's a paycheck by paycheck. And note that that's different than some of the other kind of connotations we can have. If it's just a check, it says check. If it's a pay bill, it's a pay bill. But they're all check. Those are all checks. It's just it's a different type of check. So this still means it's a check, different type of check. We want to check that the check numbers are matching the check numbers on the actual checks if we wrote them by hand or if we printed them. And then if we double click on these, we can check the information. And so here it is. Here's the detail. If we want to see the full detail on the paycheck stub, we select this item. And that'll give us kind of our input screen so we can see what actually happened, gross pay, net pay, payroll taxes for the employer. Closing this back out. And we can also print the pay stub from here if we need to give that informational stuff to the employee. Close this back out. Let's take a look at the financial statements. So we're going to go to the reports up top, company and financial. We'll take a look first at the balance sheet. So go into the balance sheet, changing the dates in the custom report up top. We'll change the dates from 01/01/19 to 12/31/19 and OK. So what happened, of course, is the checking account's going to go down because we wrote checks. If we double click that and scroll down, we'll see our 2 checks. There's our 2 checks. The other side is split because there's multiple transactions. It's not just one other account that was affected. So we'll close this back out. What else happened? Well, there should be an expense. That's if there was no withholdings, that's how easy the payroll check would be. We would debit the expense and we would credit cash, just like we would if we paid the utility bill. But of course we have withholdings and that's not how easy it is. So payroll can get quite complicated because of that. So we're going to go to the reports up top and see the expense. Go to the company and financial and the profit and loss. And let's take a look at it for the year of 01/01/19 to 12/31/19. Here's going to be our information. We're going to go down to the payroll expense. Here's the payroll expense. Double clicking on that item. We can scroll down and we see Adam and Erica again. We got the first month of operations here and the second month. And it looks like a lot of detail because we're looking at this and saying I expected to see one transaction for one payroll, possibly 2 employees. It looks like I have 100, like 20 employees or something. That's not the case. 2 payroll periods happened here, and there's only 2 employees for this payroll period, but they're breaking this information out, and they're breaking it out by what should be broken out, in my opinion, in 2 different accounts, meaning we should have a payroll expense account and a payroll taxes account. And within the payroll expense account, that's this number, and then these 2 are the payroll taxes. And that breakout is a little confusing. It's not what a lot of people would think, because this expense number here, 4,583, does include some of the withholdings that we took out, some of the payroll taxes for the employee that we will pay. But it does belong in payroll expenses rather than payroll tax expenses. So in other words, if we look at this item here and look at the check detail, double clicking on this, then we'll see that this amount is for the full 4,583, even though this person, Adam, only got 3,512. So it's not in the system as the net check, but the gross check. And that would make sense because this is what was actually earned by Adam, even though we're paying this amounts to somebody else on Adam's behalf to the government. So if we close this back out, close this back out, these 2 amounts then do not reflect what we took from Adam because those are included here. These 2 amounts represent our employer taxes and therefore could be broken out. These are the actual payroll taxes. So if we were to say what are the payroll taxes for the company, they don't include the employee's payroll taxes. They only include the employer payroll taxes over and above what was earned by the employee. So if we double click on this item and go to the paycheck detail, those really represent these items over here, not these items here. So that's what's broken out in the expenses. So we'll close this back out. Close this back out. So those are the expenses. And then the other side, I'm going to close this back out, is going to be on the balance sheet. So let's go back to the balance sheet. So if we go to the balance sheet and then we go down to the payroll liabilities. Here's the payroll liabilities. We owe $1,653. Double clicking on that item, we see this broken out here. And again, it looks like a lot of information. It is a lot of information, but it's really only representing 2 employees for 2 payroll periods. Here's January. All this is related to January. And then all this is related to February. and there's only 2 employees, which we can basically see here. Now, these items here is when we paid January's liabilities. And then here, so it goes back to 0, right? We processed payroll, we owed payroll liabilities, and then we paid them here. And now we're starting over again. We processed payroll, we've got these 2 employees, and it's broken out by these items. So here's the withholdings from the employee for federal income taxes for Adam, Social Security for Adam, Social Security for us, our portion as the employer, Medicare for Adam, Medicare for the employer, federal income tax for Erica, Social Security for Erica, Social Security for us based on Erica, Social Security employee, Social Security employer, or this is Medicare. This is Social Security, and this is Medicare. So it gives us all the detail in there, so in that payroll transaction. If we close this out, notice there's also a lot of reports that you can see that will support this payroll information. Of course, if we go to reports up top and we go to employees and payroll, we got the payroll summary data. We can actually export it to Excel, and that's really nice. It gives us a lot of information. Payroll summary detail, payroll summary, payroll item detail will break it out by item. So you can explore some of these reports, which will sum up the payroll data in different ways. It's useful to do that, and I do recommend looking at some of those reports and seeing how this data can be sorted in different ways, as well as exporting to Excel, because that'll give you another format for these reports. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.